At the victory banquet, I stood on the outskirts of the crowd and watched as Derrick Caldwell basked in the admiration of the pack. We had been mates for 8 years. And yet, the Luna standing beside him was his childhood sweetheart, Lilith Sterling, instead of me. The two of them were inseparable, and they seemed destined for each other. A warrior asked curiously, "Alpha Derrick, I heard you had a mate of 8 years. Is that the one standing next to you?" Lilith only lowered her head shyly upon hearing the question. "That's Alpha Derrick's private matter. He isn't ready to make it public yet." Immediately, murmurs spread through the crowd. Everyone took her silence as confirmation that she was Derrick's mate. Someone laughed and teased, "Since our Luna is so shy, let's just pretend we don't know anything." Derrick smiled slightly. "Lilith is a newly appointed minister under my command. Show her the respect she deserves." The crowd erupted into laughter, and the atmosphere by the bonfire grew even livelier. Only my good friend, Allison Whitmore, leaned in close and whispered, "Talia, is this part of your plan? Are you going to surprise them all later?" I didn't answer. My heart ached. Derrick and I had been together for years, yet he had never once acknowledged our mate bond in front of the pack. Whenever people questioned our relationship, he was always quick to dismiss it as if it was something shameful. But today, when it came to rumors about him and Lilith, he neither confirmed nor denied them. When he stepped away to the restroom, I quietly intercepted him, demanding to know why he still refused to acknowledge me. His expression twisted with irritation. "Do you know what people say about me? They said that I'm the only alpha in the Argent Moon Federation who wasn't born a noble. You may have helped me claim the title of alpha, but your background is too lowly. You can't compare to Lilith's prestigious bloodline. If they find out my mate is a rogue born Omega, they'll look down on me even more. As my mate, you need to be understanding. Letting them assume Lilith is my mate isn't a big deal. It makes me appear more noble in their eyes." I knew Lilith was his first love and the one who had once saved him when he was nothing but a struggling warrior. But for 8 years, I had fought alongside him, shedding blood in battle and helping him rise to the position of alpha. I thought I should have earned his respect at the very least. And yet, now, he refused to acknowledge my existence, using my background as an excuse. In fact, Talia Smith contributed a lot in helping us conquer the 2 snow mountains this time. Lilith suddenly spoke up. Though she doesn't know much about combat, she was always assisting from the sidelines. Now, let's have her come up and say a few words. Her words brought the entire gathering to a halt. The warriors exchanged confused glances, struggling to recall who Talia Smith even was. Then, sharp voices of doubt rang out through the silence. "Talia Smith? Isn't she just Alpha Derrick's maid? What contributions could she possibly have made? What could an Omega who can't even draw a bow possibly do?" Some even openly mocked me. What is a maid doing at a celebration like this? Is she afraid of being outshone by Lilith and trying to steal attention for herself? Derrick frowned and raised a hand to silence the crowd. "Enough. Talia isn't used to being in the spotlight. Let's continue the celebration." Scornful, dismissive, mocking gazes surged toward me like an unstoppable tide. Over the years, the pack had come to believe I was nothing more than a weak Omega clinging to Derrick's side under Lilith's deliberate guidance. They had no idea that I was the war god, Shadow, who always wore a mask. Before the pack was established, I had repelled countless invaders with ill intentions. People mocked Derrick for it, calling him a coward who hid behind a woman. He felt humiliated, believing I had stolen his glory. He demanded that I wear a mask while handling affairs, becoming nothing more than his shadow. "This will make it easier for you to manage and command the pack," he had said with a hint of guilt in his voice back then. Back then, I saw him as my mate for life. I followed his wishes, wearing the mask in battle, never revealing my true face. I willingly let him take all the credit and glory and never asked for anything in return. I just never thought that this would become the very excuse they used to humiliate me one day. But since I had already decided to leave, there was nothing left to argue about. I turned and walked away. "Stop right there." I had just stepped out of the banquet hall when Derrick caught up to me. There was reproach in his voice. "What are you sulking about now? You're my mate. Instead of staying to help me, where do you think you're going?" Put on your mask and participate in the hunting trial later. I raised a brow and retorted coldly, didn't you just say I wasn't used to the spotlight? If that's the case, you should let your esteemed minister, Lilith, take my place. His expression darkened after hearing my words. He raised his voice. I only said that for your sake. You never wanted to be in the public eye, so I had no choice but to push Lilith forward. Lilith is a noble, the daughter of Astral Pax Alpha. She's highly capable and well-educated. If I weren't worried about your jealousy, I would have appointed her as the chief steward long ago. Do you think I'd let her settle for being just a minister? I scoffed and said in a cold voice, is it that I never wanted to be in the public eye? Or is it that you never wanted me to be seen? You look down on my lowly background and think I don't deserve the title of Luna. Am I supposed to fulfill my duties as your mate now that you need me? He looked embarrassed and was at a loss for words. Just then, Lilith appeared. She wore a silver moon cloak, the symbol of the Luna's status. I had seen that cloak before, tucked away in our home's storage cabinet, and had once believed it was a surprise Derrick had prepared for me. Yet now, it was on Lilith's shoulders. I found it ridiculous. Derrick claimed he was concerned about my jealousy, but he had gifted Lilith the Luna's cloak. Did he really think I was a fool? Lilith smiled gently as she said in a soft voice full of sarcasm, Talia, I know the Lupus Umbra pack wouldn't be what it is today without your negotiations and hard work. But none of this would have been possible without Alpha Derrick's leadership. You always insist on claiming all the credit for yourself. Don't you think that's a bit much? A flicker of admiration flashed in Derrick's eyes as he immediately chimed in, you're always so arrogant and stubborn, thinking I'd be nothing without you. Who do you think you are? Do you really believe I contributed nothing toward building this pack from a small village into what it is today? The two of them played off each other seamlessly, as if I were the outsider here. Those years of my sacrifice and devotion were reduced to nothing in the face of Lilith's effortless flattery. I nodded slightly. If that's what you think, then let's break the mate bond. Derrick scoffed. Stop playing hard to get. Put on your mask and get to the trial immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for exiling you from the pack. He knew I had been displaced since childhood and that my greatest fear was being cast out, losing my home, and losing him. Before, I might have backed down. But now, I suddenly understood that no matter what I did, the pack would never accept the real me. I had never truly belonged here. And at the root of it all, it was because Derrick refused to acknowledge me. He didn't love me. I turned and walked away without looking back. His furious voice echoed behind me. Take one more step, and I'll break the mate bond for real. I let out a soft laugh and kept walking. I returned to the castle we once shared. Derrick never came back that night, and I never closed my eyes. The next morning, he walked in carrying a basket, smiling as if the argument last night had never happened. You haven't had breakfast yet, have you? I brought you your favorite pancakes. I had never once said I liked pancakes. As far as I knew, pancakes were Lilith's favorite. Seeing that I didn't react, he sighed. Are you not hungry? You haven't had your breakfast, right? He hesitated before continuing. You were being unreasonable last night. Storming out of the banquet was one thing, but throwing around talk of breaking the mate bond. If you're mad because I didn't clear things up with Lilith in public, I'll do it later when I get the chance. I was a little surprised. He rarely spoke to me in such a gentle tone. In fact, this was the first time he'd ever asked if I'd eaten. Then, he said in an even softer voice, you have no idea. After you left, the leaders you negotiated with suddenly changed their minds. One of them even announced they were pulling out of our alliance. Lilith is just a noble woman. She doesn't understand political negotiations. Come with me tomorrow and help smooth things over, okay? I looked at him with mocking amusement. So, that was what this was really about. You just want me to clean up your mess, huh? I should have known that every time he feigned kindness, it was because he wanted something from me. I had been blinded by love for so long. Now that my mind was clear, I could see just how obvious his intentions had always been. After all these years, had he ever been with me out of love, or was it only because I was useful? He immediately frowned and said in a voice filled with reproach, clean up my mess? You're serving the pack. Shouldn't that be your duty? Derrick had always been good at twisting words, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I got up and was ready to go back to my bedroom to sleep again. Wait. He let out a long sigh, putting on that familiar exasperated yet indulgent expression. He pulled out a silk scarf and handed it to me. Here, this is for you. Just calm down, all right? Let's not fight anymore. I stared at the scarf and couldn't help but laugh coldly. Whenever our top-tier tailors crafted a custom cloak, they always included a silk scarf to wrap the garment. I had seen this very scarf before. It had been tucked beneath the silver moon cloak in my storage cabinet. Now, this freebie was being presented to me as a heartfelt gift. How ironic. I took the scarf, running my fingers over the coarse fabric. Then, I tossed it into the nearby fireplace without hesitation. The flames devoured it instantly, turning it into ashes that drifted into the air. Anything else? I'm going to sleep again. Derrick's face darkened, and his voice was laced with restrained anger. You should learn to appreciate what you're given. I've already tried to make it up to you. What more do you want? I met his gaze coldly. The only thing you can do for me now is agree to break our mate bond. His pupils dilated in shock. What did you just say? You're just a rogue, he sneered after a brief silence. I gave you a home and a castle, and I saved you from a life of wandering. That should be more than enough for you. Stop being greedy. His voice rose as he continued, if you keep this up, not only will I refuse to send Lilith away, but I'll make her the chief steward. She'll hold a position far more prestigious than yours in front of the entire pack. Lilith? The spoiled noblewoman who spent her days drinking afternoon tea? Running the pack as a chief steward? I let out a sharp laugh. Go ahead. If you're not afraid of watching her turn the entire pack into a disaster, be my guest. He caught the mockery in my tone and slammed the door on his way out. The next day, I rode hard to the Argent Moon Federation's palace. Since Derrick refused to accept my rejection, I had no choice but to petition Alpha King for a forced severance of our mate bond. Thankfully, the process went smoothly. With the mate bond officially broken, I returned to the Lupasombra pack. I still had people there, Allison and my squad. I wanted to ask if they would leave with me. When I told them my plan, I expected hesitation, maybe resistance. Instead, they all agreed immediately. This morning, Alpha Derrick actually said he was going to put Lilith in charge of our unit. What a joke. He doesn't even realize we're loyal to you, not this pack. If it weren't for you saving us, we never would have fought for this place in the first place. Talia, I'll follow you anywhere. We're with you. I looked at them, overwhelmed with emotion. Even though I had been born an outcast, they still chose to stand by me. And that only made my decision to leave even clearer. I returned to the castle to gather the rest of my belongings. To my surprise, Derrick and Lilith were both there, seated at a table covered with several sheets of paper filled with dense, handwritten notes. They were the documents I had prepared yesterday before going to see the Alpha King, detailed records of every pack affair I had handled. Derrick's expression softened. You do have some sense. Knowing that Lilith would be taking over as chief steward, you wisely wrote down all the key details in advance. But what you did was unacceptable. As a warning, I've already informed your unit that Lilith will be taking command. Go tell them they are to follow her orders from now on. And for the next few months, you will pose as Lilith's handmaid, assisting her with pack affairs. Lilith gasped, feigning concern. Alpha Derrick, isn't that a bit too much? After all, Talia has contributed so much to the pack. Making her my handmaid seems unfair. Derrick scoffed. She actually threatened me with a bond rejection yesterday. If she won't accept a punishment, then she should just leave the pack altogether. I watched their little performance with cold indifference before speaking calmly. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm done with everything. That paper was for transitioning my responsibilities. You can find anyone you want to replace me, but I am not responsible for helping them adjust. Derrick froze, gritting his teeth as he glared at me. Don't be ungrateful. I'm going to be the future Alpha King. If you piss me off, I'll exile you and turn you back into the rogue you were before I took you in. I chuckled, completely unfazed. Oh, I forgot to tell you that I'm not your mate anymore. I went to the Alpha King yesterday and had our mate bond forcibly severed. Also, I'm no longer part of your pack. The Alpha King has approved my request to establish my own pack. I never plan to return to this place again. For a moment, Derrick and Lilith were completely speechless. Then, as the shock settled in, Lilith's expression shifted to one of smug satisfaction, while Derrick's face twisted in anger, far from the relief I had expected. I went to my room, packed my belongings, and made my way to the exit. Derrick stood in the doorway and said in a low and icy tone, "Don't come crawling back when you regret this. You're about to start from nothing all over again." Lilith sneered. "Some people are just short-sighted. Angering the Alpha? You'll have a hard time crawling back when you realize your mistake." I let out a soft laugh and said in a sharp tone, "Instead of wasting time mocking me, you might want to focus on the problem at hand." Before they could respond, a group of warriors burst into the room with panic. "Alpha Derrick. Bad news. The rogue leaders we allied with have just torn up the contract. They've gathered outside the walls and are preparing to